It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, aka the Queen Bee of this hive, and today we're talking about something that gets me fired up in the best way possible: the future of women's sports. Because let's be real, women athletes have always been elite, disciplined, strategic, and resilient. They train just as hard, sacrifice just as much, and often carry even more pressure than their male counterparts. What they haven't always had is equal pay, equal coverage, or equal respect. And that's not an accident. That's patriarchy in a tracksuit pretending it's just business. Women's sports are not struggling because of talent or effort. They've been historically starved of investment, visibility, and institutional support. And when people say, well, women's sports just don't make money, what they're really saying is, we haven't bothered to try. So today, we're breaking down where we are, how far we've come, what's still broken, and most importantly, what we can actually do about it as fans, feminists, parents, professionals, and humans who care about equity. So take a breath, grab your coffee, lace up your metaphorical cleats, and let's go. This may not come as a surprise to you, but the pay gap in women's sports is still loud and still real. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Women athletes are still drastically underpaid compared to men, even when they outperform them in viewership, championships, consistency, and global impact. And let me provide some context here because facts matter. If you're in the United States, you may not believe that given everything that's happening in this country, but in my world, facts still matter. So, the U.S. women's national soccer team has won 4 World Cups and multiple Olympic medals. The men's team, 0 World Cups. Yet, for decades, the women were paid less, flew commercial while the men flew charter, and trained on inferior fields. The WNBA players earn a fraction of NBA salaries, with many players historically forced to play overseas just to make a living wage, despite being the best in the world at what they do. Globally, women athletes receive less than 5% of total sports media coverage, which directly impacts sponsorships, endorsements, and long-term financial stability. And here's the psychological piece that I want you to really sit with. Pay inequity isn't just about money. It's about perceived value. When women are paid less, the message is internalized as your labor, your talent, your body, and your sacrifice matter less. And as a psychotherapist, I want to name this clearly. Systemic devaluation is trauma-inducing. That's not being dramatic. That is a clinical fact. Chronic underpayment and dismissal erode confidence, increase anxiety, and reinforce imposter syndrome, even in the most accomplished athletes. This is not about toughness. It's about fairness. And to broaden this out for a second, even if you are not an athlete, If you are a woman and you have been chronically underpaid and dismissed, what does that do to your confidence? What does it do to your mental health? So, see, you don't have to be an athlete to understand that imposter syndrome that they can be struggling with. Now, let's talk about the media, because visibility is currency. In media coverage, if you're not seen, you are not funded. And we all know that men's sports dominate headlines, highlight reels, primetime slots, and marketing budgets. Women's sports are often treated like a side dish, something to celebrate, once a year during the Olympics or after a historic win, and then quietly shelved again. But here's the plot twist the media doesn't like to admit. When women's sports are broadcast consistently, people watch. As a matter of fact, the 2023 NCAA Women's Basketball Championship drew record-breaking viewership, rivaling and, in some demographics, surpassing the men's game. The 2023 Women's World Cup reached billions of viewers worldwide, proving that global interest is not the problem. This clearly tells us the issue isn't lack of interest, it's lack of investment, promotion, and respect. So, from a feminist lens, this is about who gets the microphone, right? From a mental health lens, this is about visibility, validation, and identity development. You cannot become what you cannot see. And generations of girls have grown up without seeing women celebrated as strong, physical, competitive, strategic leaders. Representation doesn't just inspire, it expands what feels possible. I'm going to go off a little bit here. I hate to bring politics into this because this is not about politics. But forgive me, I cannot remember if I shared this or not in a prior episode. If I did, it was a while ago. So growing up as a little girl, I heard a lot of comments about how women can't be president because they're too emotional. Women can't be leaders because they're too emotional, right? So I grew up with a worldview of women are not leaders. And so when I watched Kamala Harris become vice president of the United States, it did something to me. It did something inside of me. And to see the hope, to see women just, it's like their eyes opened up. I saw so many women expressing tears of joy and awe and wonder. People around my age, right? Because we typically weren't groomed to be leaders back in the day. And because of that, I never saw myself in a leadership position. I never saw myself as a leader of anything, despite the fact that I am a very assertive person. I am a go-getter. I bust my ass at everything I do. I have qualities of leadership that I never bothered to nurture because I didn't see that. It got better as I grew up. I'm a late bloomer. I'm late to the club, right? And now, as a woman in my 50s, I am busting down all the walls that exist because I don't believe in barriers at all. Screw that. I will do what I want. I'm a force of nature. And I want to speak to the younger generation of women to get them confident in that also. And so bringing it back to athletes, I didn't grow up watching female athletes. As a matter of fact, the only time I remember seeing anything about women in sports was the Olympics. That's it. And it was typically like figure skating that was broadcast on TV and gymnastics. There wasn't anything that was like physical contact or requiring certain types of strength that I ever remember being on TV when I was a kid. So this is why visibility matters. This is why it's so important for all types of people to be represented in all areas of life. Don't go too deep on that. I don't want to get hate mail of, oh, so pedophiles need to be represented. As a matter of fact, they already are in the highest levels of government. But anyway, that is another episode. I will shut that down right now. Okay, so let's talk about respect, shall we? This respect is the invisible battle that women athletes fight daily. The lack of respect that female athletes experience is most often subtle, but exhausting and constant. And let me be clear, sometimes it's not so subtle. Sometimes it's very overt disrespect. Women athletes are still sexualized instead of celebrated. They are still critiqued for their bodies instead of their performance. They are still called emotional. Hear me gritting my teeth as I say that. They're still called emotional while men are praised as passionate or intense. And women athletes are still asked about motherhood, relationships, or appearance instead of stats, tactics, and leadership. People, this isn't just annoying, it is gendered gaslighting. Respect is about language. It's about who gets called an athlete versus a female athlete. It's about who is trusted as an expert and who is treated like a novelty act. And respect directly impacts mental health, career longevity, safety, and self-trust. When women aren't respected, they are more vulnerable to exploitation, harassment, abuse, and burnout. This is not a coincidence. It is a systemic pattern. But you know what? The future is changing because women are demanding it. Here's the hopeful hell yes part. The future of women's sports is loud, organized, and freaking unapologetic, and I am here for every moment of it. We are seeing real shifts, including collective bargaining agreements that push for pay equity, benefits, and protections. Hell yes. We're seeing women athletes using social media and platforms to control their own narratives and bypass traditional gatekeepers. Hell yes. We are seeing fans intentionally showing up, buying tickets, streaming games, and demanding coverage. And we are seeing the beautiful shift of girls growing up knowing that they don't have to shrink their power, ambition, or physicality to be likable. This, my hive, is feminism in motion. This is what happens when women stop asking nicely and start organizing strategically. So even if you are struggling with this episode because you have zero interest in sports whatsoever, please listen to it for the beautiful example that it is. Women taking action and demanding better. We can all take lessons from these trailblazers in the field of sports. All right, Hive, this is where we move from awareness to action. Here's what you can actually do to support women's sports. Because you know, I cannot have an episode without actionable steps. So, step 1, watch women's sports intentionally. Because ratings matter. Stream the games, turn them on in your home, gym, or workplace. Step number 2, buy the merch and the tickets. Jerseys, subscriptions, and live attendance directly support leagues and athletes. Step number 3, follow women athletes on social media. Because engagement increases visibility, sponsorships, and financial opportunities. If you're not into sports, you can still follow women athletes on social media. It doesn't matter what they do for their job. You can still follow them even if it's not something you're interested in, because it is their voice that matters. It is their communing with sisterhood that matters. We need to support them whether we give one single solitary rat's behind about sports or not. Step number 4, call out sexist commentary. At the bar, in your group chat, online, or at family gatherings. Because silence protects inequality. So again, if you're not interested in sports, all right, go be a troll for the people, for the sexist buttholes out there who have something to say in the comments section online, right? You don't have to be interested in sports to follow a female athlete and crush the patriarchy that you will see in the comment section. Step number 5, support girls in sports. Advocate for equal funding in schools, donate to programs, and encourage girls to stay in the game if that's where they want to be. And then finally, step number 6, talk about women's sports like they matter, because they freaking do. Normalize excellence. Small actions multiplied consistently create massive cultural shifts. And given that this topic, this episode, is not something that's for everyone, right? It just kind of made me think here in the moment as I'm speaking. When it comes to these actionable steps that I do in every episode, I'm not telling you have to do them all. And I don't know if I've ever made that clear. So apologies for my first 2 seasons where you may have felt a little pressure like you had to do everything. I hope not, because girlfriend, you do you. Don't let anyone tell you what to do, including me. I'm just here for the hype, for the support, for the inspiration, education, all that fun stuff, right? But with these actionable steps, it's the same with any kind of advocacy. We don't have to occupy every single freaking lane, right? We don't have to do all the things. You know, when it comes to, for example, protesting, as you are listening to this, when it's released, we will be a little over a week out from a woman being murdered by ICE in Minnesota. And so there are protests happening right now, and I'm sure they are still happening at the release of this episode. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to a protest, right? That's not everybody's lane. Find yours. Find what is comfortable, and then find what's a little uncomfortable, but you're willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone to do. And of course, find your people. Find them. They are out there. Every time I think I'm swimming alone on an island of feminism, I go find my people. And I've been having great conversations with friends from back in the day recently, and it's just very empowering to me because as women, we're a little upset about what is happening in the world, and we have reached the point where we're done taking it. So we're organizing. We are communing first and foremost with our sisters, and we are gathering and figuring out what the effing hell we can do to make positive change in this world. Because the time is now. The time is here. We can't just sit back and rest on the efforts of our foremothers who got us to this place in history. No, it is time for us to rise up. Women around my age, in our 50s, we have the ability to do this. Some of you just starting out, if you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, your work may not be the same as ours because you're starting out. You're forging your place in this world, and you may not have the resources, time, or energy to fight certain fights. But let me tell you, my peeps do. We're there. We're done. So again, this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place, because I'm done. I'm done living under what I feel is oppression of patriarchal norms in this society. That's why I have this podcast, because I want to inspire every woman to push back against this BS. All right, clearly, I could go off forever on this. So let's get to the affirmation of the week. All right, my ladies of the hive, here it is. Let's end this episode with this affirmation. The best shit happens outside my comfort zone. Whew, hell yeah, that one hits. And you know what? Women athletes live this truth every single day. They train outside comfort. They compete outside comfort. They advocate for equity outside comfort. And here's the deeper truth. Growth, change, and liberation don't happen in comfort. They happen in courage. Discomfort is often a sign that you are challenging a system that benefits from you staying small. So, if supporting women's sports feels unfamiliar, awkward, or even inconvenient, congratulations. That, my dears, is the sound of expansion. That is you stepping out of your comfort zone. Let discomfort be a doorway, not a deterrent. And you know what? Now that I think of it, this was not going to be part of the episode, but it kind of fits. I recently signed up for a virtual 5K through I Run for Movement, and I'm gathering some ladies to do it together. It's my own little way of honoring women's sports by participating in my own version of a team. I will actually put the link in the show notes in case you want to join too. And also the link will be in the Facebook podcast group too. The Hint Hive Facebook podcast group. So you can create your own team or you can join mine, but let's do this in solidarity of women's sports. Step out of your comfort zone with me and check out the I Run for Movement site. You can choose a 5K or a 10K to participate in. There are several to choose from, and do it whenever you can. It's cool. Like, I don't know how to explain this very well. I apologize. But it's a virtual 5K, so you can do it whenever you want. I actually did this with my sister-in-law the Thanksgiving before last, and it was awesome. We got shirts, we got a medal, you get the race bib, everything. So if you want to do it solo by yourself, that's fine. Or like I said, grab a bunch of your gals and do it together. Or if you're looking to create a girl gang to do it together and you don't have anyone, feel free to head over to the Hint Hive podcast Facebook group and let us know which one you're doing, because maybe I'll join yours too. That would be kind of cool, huh? All right, Hive, here is your Queen Bee challenge for the week. Choose one women's sport, team, or athlete to intentionally support this month. Watch a game, follow a league, follow a female athlete on social media, buy a ticket, share their story, whatever you're inspired to do. And then bring the conversation into your circles, at work, at home, online, and in your community. Because culture doesn't change quietly. It changes when women and allies refuse to shut up. And as always, if this episode lit a fire in you, share it, leave a review, and keep amplifying women's voices on the field, on the court, and everywhere that power lives. Until next time, Hive, stay loud, stay brave, and remember, the future is female and athletic as hell. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.